what's nice about everyone who's spoken so far is each has given has been a segue into what I'm going to talk about now. There is unequivocally we are in a very unique age of talent acquisition. Look, to put numbers down, I've been recruiting for 38 years now. I was an engineer for 15. There was a crossover. I'm 66. I've seen oil embargo. I've seen market crashes. I've seen building crashes. I've seen plane crashes. I've seen crashes beyond crashes. I've seen our profession go up and down. I've made some galactically stupid mistakes. I've made some frighteningly prescient good mistakes, after the fact that they turned out to be good. And but one of the most influential books I've ever read was a book by Thomas Kuhn, The Structure of Scientific Revolution, and it talks to about these paradigm shifts in everything. Jason talked about it: industrial age, this age, that age. We're in a real paradigm shifting um, era, and talent acquisition, as we know it, it's going to change, but it's also going to stay the same. And so what I'm going to talk about over the next 15, 20 minutes is a fairly rushed view on what I view to be 30 future-proof capabilities for TA in this era of AI. I'm going to talk about specific things that you can start doing right now to help develop those skills. So I will go look back in the chat later. Everyone's going to get there's a much more detailed deck here that everyone will get. So don't worry about taking notes. Anyway, so this is me. You can decide which one is me and which one is not me. Next slide. So, I've been speaking at conferences as long as, everybody here who's been doing it a long time. And change can be fairly scary to pretty much everybody. And I've also spoken about courage in sourcing. I did a keynote at a conference a couple of years back, and I use this quote, and I'm going to use it again right now. It's courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the assessment that something else is more important than fear. And what's more important in fear is the fact that we have a community that's going to help you either push you or pull you into a better state. If you want to be in talent acquisition, then you're going to have to commit to yourself, not to anyone else. Commit to yourself to continue to do more than you've been doing. You're going to have to reinvent. You're going to have to try. You're going to have to fail. But if you stand still, nothing's going to change. So, talk about making the future. Everything we're going to talk about now, I'm going to talk about now in the next couple of minutes, is all about you making your future. So what I'm going to talk about, there are three areas: core traits, core values, and core skills. And I kind of view the core traits as the DNA of tomorrow's TA practitioners. And, what I've done is, because I'm not going to talk about 30, I've chunked them into certain groups. Some are not chunkable. So one of the first traits that I believe is so core, I call it curious defiance. And this is a mindset that rejects outdated assumptions and challenges both human and AI generated processes, keeps TA relevant, and prevents hiring practices from becoming stale or biased. Come on, folks. We all know that, many in TA, many in HR, they kind of view what they do as what's the adage? You become so good at using a hammer, everything begins to look like a nail. And LinkedIn goes down and everybody has a car and oh my God, here's the big one. What am I going to do if it goes down? There are things you can do to actually make a difference. So some of the three that I'm going to highlight here are right, you can start doing now is having quarterly myth busting sessions. You gather your TA, you gather your hiring managers, some of your analysts. Maybe Madeline, if you pay her enough, she'll come to your session. She'll come to your company using real hiring data and challenge legacy practices. Just because we've always done it this way, that's not a strategy, that's a cop out. Have TA hackathons. Hold them where one, I'd say two a year, one every 6 months to redesign an outdated or a broken hiring ritual. Fix the damn problem. And finally, start looking at AI versus human output comparisons. Run sourcing tasks through both recruiters and AI tools and compare efficiency, accuracy, and bias. You're going to learn something from it. You're going to learn both ways. Believe me, the more you feed into the machine, the more it can substantially sidestep things like model collapse and edge cases and hallucinations. So next we have I call it empathetic systems thinking, or we need to be substantially more uh, empathetic. Design every process with awareness of trauma, accessibility, neurodiversity. That's for you, Gregory. Intersectionality. Create a fairer, more inclusive hiring environment. Improve candidate experience and brand reputation. That is the most important thing you do. Right now, even though I'm consulting, I do apply to jobs and I've got a good network. I can get to any hiring manager I want and call them up if I feel like it. But I want to apply to a job. I will apply to every job, no matter how painful it is, because I need the data point on candidate experience. If I get in, oh boy, will that be a topic. So some of the things that you can do to deal with, create a more empathetic hiring environment is have varied interview formats. Give people options, camera off, async, voice only during scheduling. If you're on the spectrum, if you're hearing impaired or whatnot, put those in as options so people can select them. Don't make them guess about it. Um, implement. I haven't highlighted this, but having neuro inclusive language training um, is really important because we sort of get caught up in patterns and doing things kind of without thinking. And it's not a bad idea to have a quarterly reminder to avoid language that avoids ableist, exclusionary, or culturally narrow terms. There's no reason to do that anymore. That's an easy thing to fix, but we seem to push that aside for other important things. Implement identity safety surveys. Collect anonymized candidate input on psychological safety during interviews and decision stages in post-process. Show of hands, anybody who's ever interviewed with a recruiter who was absolutely stone-faced. I mean, I have, and I try to make people laugh. If I feel, it's going to heck in a handbag, I don't give a crap. I'm gonna try to make them laugh. But I can imagine people who don't do that, who don't have the same verve as I do. Um, don't you don't create an environment where people feel uncomfortable during an interview. I mean, that to me, that's ridiculous. Next, strategic adaptability or foresight flexibility. Having the ability to see disruptions coming and adapt your strategies ahead of the curve is so important. Um, yeah, some of you know me well. I do something called the pest analysis, political, economic, social, technological. Uh, put that as part of your TA trend radar. Maintain a living dashboard for emerging tech, labor issues, regulatory issues, political issues. You can't turn a blind eye to them. They're real and they impact everything we do in hiring. Have scenario planning workshops. Bring TA, HR, e-leadership together to model potential disruptions. What if this happens? What if that happens? Nothing is going to elevate you more than to be able to, actually converse in that tactical, strategic way of thinking. Implement capacity stress tests. Simulate surges or dips in hiring demand to identify bottlenecks. We can do all of these right now. And finally, well, this is my favorite. Humor is a real power leveler to me. I call this core trait comedic intelligence. Use humor strategically to break tension, reduce bias, and humanize the process. Um, I remember a couple of years back doing a session at a conference on using humor in outreach messages, and I got really good response, really better response rates for some reason. I didn't delve into it at the time, but it worked. Curate a humor library with brand safe jokes and icebreakers. Train recruiters on when and how to use levity to connect without crossing the lines. That's the careful thing. Crossing the lines, sometimes you get too comfortable and you say really stupid things. I've been afflicted with that disease many, many times. Light storytelling in JDs. You know what I hate? You open up a JD and it's like 60% is marketing pablum. I mean, rah, 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 rah. Have a one paragraph, kind of a humorous story about what's happening. And I don't know who did this, and someone can remind me. Some recruiters a couple of years back took improv training. And man, I thought that's something that I have to try one day. But have a culture first comedy event, host an informal networking or info sessions with like a comedic tone, just to create a humanize the brand. You're not all this stone-faced, buttoned-up person. Uh, guiding principles in a synthetic hiring landscape. That's where we are right now. We are turning into a synthetic hiring landscape. We've got humans, we've got agents, we got FTEs, we got FTCs, we have gig workers all blending together. What are some of the core values that go into this? Radical transparency, straight out. No more ghosting. I will ban no reply emails. There's nothing that pisses me off more than getting a no reply email from a company that says, "But we value you. Please join our talent pipeline." Us do not. No, no way. You don't give me a chance. And then put a human being in there? I don't think so. Explain all decisions. Have audit trails for decisions. Show of hand. Anybody in the chat, have you ever been sued for giving honest feedback to somebody? Not stupid feedback, but honest, objective, performance-based feedback. I guess you haven't. Personalized closure comms with actionable feedback. You can read these. We'll go on to the next ones. Constructive paranoia. Assume the system is being gamed and act accordingly. Protect TA from fraudulent applicants and reputational risk. Balance security with candidate trust. Part of what we need to do, and we're seeing this more and more, and everybody here has been afflicted with it. We're going to have to start, verifying resumes, portfolios, everything. So integrate AI content detection into applicant review flows. You may have to, there are tools that can do that. You may have to build them yourself. Have a deep fake drill exercise. Simulate fraudulent scenarios to test recruiters' readiness. Kind of like phishing emails that IT likes to send out. Sorry, but if the only way you're going to get better is to practice. Anti-scale bravery. Humanity over efficiency 6 days a week and twice on Sunday. Choosing humanity over efficiency when it matters most. Preserve quality and empathy in critical hiring moments. Know when automation adds value and when it alienates. So some of the things you can do right now: human-only touch point mapping, candidate experience panels, escalation protocols for automation errors. That's a pretty cool one. Switch to human handling for sensitive cases. What they are, define them. Create the framework and the model that your team can use. The interesting thing that I like to talk about, white glove delivery. Brett, chime in on this one. To me, the most important thing that we are not doing, and this is across the board, is simply red carpet in, red carpet out. Don't say you care. Don't say join your talent pipeline. Don't say blah, 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 unless you're going to treat people with respect. No equivocation. Stop, period. Here's the skills that I think you all must master to thrive in 2026 and beyond. And these are going to go fairly fast. I chunked these. There are 27 or so left, and I chunked them down into a couple of different categories to make sense. But and I give it and I gave them a name. The first one looks at the skills I call it: cognitive prompt architecture, prompt literacy and skepticism, human-centered prompt engineering, under the general category of prompt craft and language intelligence. And and what each is the following. Cognitive prompt architecture is designs prompts that encode business logic, tone, and hiring context, but you can test them like products. Prompt literacy and skepticism, it crafts effective prompts, rigorously checks AI outputs for accuracy and bias. And finally, human-centered prompt engineering, it builds prompts that reflect brand tone, empathy, and bias guardrails. Uh, just much in the same way that we A/B test. And notice with the structure here, when you get it, the hashtag is associated with the actual skill. We A/B test messages. I think we need to start, if you're not A/B testing your prompts and see how it impacts on candidate engagement, ultimately down the line, you're doing a big miss. Have prompt compliance audits until, I mean, this is going to be and Bob Pulver, I'm sure you're going to chime in on this one. have these quarterly audits for legal and DEI risks. Um, the more we rely on the LLMs, the more we will likely see some sort of model collapse and regression to the mean. And that scares the crap out of me in terms of bad messaging and bad candidate engagement. Um, Prompt critiquing, teach TA to red team AI outputs before sending. You know the old Carpenter's maxim, measure twice, cut once. Before you send stuff, you better make sure that you're hammering the right nail. You're not going to hit your finger. Candidate feedback loop. Everything we do, anything that is AI or human, you want to add a was this helpful to bot comms and iterate and continue to prove and bring that into better processes. Ultimately, what this really means, it's manners. Anyone who's old enough to know Miss Manners, manners make a difference. Treating people well makes a difference. The prompts, the things that you generate from them are going to go a long way to uh, you know getting someone to think positively about you. Treat them well, they'll treat you well. AI collaboration and governance. This is probably Bob Pulver's favorite area. The skills that fall underneath that are agentic workflow governance, neural collaboration networks, synthetic ethics navigation, and ethics engineering. Um, Control and audit AI agents in TA, running human AI hybrid evaluations, govern fairness in co-created work, design hiring systems for fairness. The OCD person in me missed that capital D, Dan. I'm really annoyed. Uh, the bottom line here, all these what they collectively do is it prevents silent failure, scope creep, and fairness risks in automated tasks. If you can't audit it, don't automate it. Same thing when it comes to metrics. If you can't control it, you can't be accountable for it. Generally speaking, you want to look at if you don't know what a RACI matrix is, it's how you manage tasks: responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. You can document what agents can and cannot do with human approval for sensitive tasks. Agent telemetry, log actions, prompts, confidence, output for audit and tuning. Log things. The more data you collect, the more data you track, the more you'll be able to improve it. Role boundary guidelines, define human AI decision making domains. This is you, this is the robot. Um, Human AI human pairing experiments. Measure, if it's 30%, 70%, 70%, 30%, measure the output. Let's see which produces better. Don't know. Um, some of the other things, shared learning sessions, debriefs on AI collaboration, wins or fails. See, another faux on my part. I didn't turn the red into black. Prompt ownership policy, define IP policies for human AI scenarios. The interesting thing about using generative and agentic AI on company information, it might push out stuff that really pushes the boundaries on what's intellectual property and what you don't want to share. Create a framework, take that into account, manage it, and all these other things that we can see. So ultimately, it's your job. It's your job. You came first. I don't know. It's the human, the robot. Decide. Don't let someone else do it for you. You choose the model. You choose the recipe. You eat what you cook. Candidate authenticity and verification. The three things are candidate authenticity protocols, synthetic candidate detection, personas as a service management. Watch this one. What these three collectively are looking at are verifying that the applicant is the person presenting and the work is theirs, detecting AI generated content and deep fakes without stigmatizing legitimate ones. There's nothing worse than being accused of something when you know it's not true. Manage candidates when presenting avatars, proxies, or AI generated personas. We haven't seen that yet, not heavily, but we all know about Zara. And when you get Zara, the job search, the job seeker in there, oh man, it's going to be real. It's going to be really challenging for TA. So let's create guidelines. Um, Here's a good one. Metadata forensics. Inspect docs for AI generation markers and treat them as signals. The biggest thing from a metric standpoint or from a environmental standpoint that I think we're going to have to tap into are being able to recognize what the signals are and what to do with them. Following few more here. Interview tells coach panels to notice latency or off sync answers and escalate, not accuse. We saw this on an FRB by Kristen Lucia last time when she talked about what she's doing at what M&T Bank is doing to deal with AI generated this and AI generated that. Um, you know, these are things that are going to come down in time, and this one is substantially more in the future and not there yet. But we're going to see more avatars. We're going to see more, AI generated human beings. I use that loosely. How are we going to respond to them and interact with them? Create the playbook right now. So if anyone remembers this, is it live or is it Memorex? It's getting more and more confusing. I remember the first time Jim Schneider, I think if you're still here, the first time you did the fake Jim cloning video, that was pretty freaky. That was pretty freaky. And now the powers and the algorithms and the code has gotten so good. Um, it's even tougher and tougher to distinguish. We're no longer seeing the six finger issues. Bias surveillance and equity engineering. Uh, the two critical skills are bias driven surveillance, neurodiversity fluency. Look, bias is dynamic. We just need to monitor humans and machines for over time to catch issues, protect the brand, ensure compliance. And for you, Gregory, neurodiversity fluency is about adapting hiring to include ADHD, autistic, and other neurodivergent thinkers. And accommodations help many, not just a few. There are these gray areas of accommodations. If you make your hiring environment neurodiversity safe, accommodation friendly, word will get around. Um, a couple of things you can do from a bias drift standpoint: adversarial testing, run match profiles differing on a protected attributes to probe how the systems deal with them. Again, A/B testing. Um, Neuro-inclusive redesign, remove irrelevant time pressures and sensory overloads. Man, I think of software engineers and code tests. You have X amount of time to do it. It doesn't work that way in real life. Don't 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 create an environment where you're simply cutting off your nose to spite your face. Decentralized talent signal analysis. We don't have many more here, trust me. Reads decentralized skill maps and reputation networks rather than static resumes. Treats silence, delays, async patterns as data to interpret, not ignore. The concept here is as AI becomes more prevalent and stronger, it will be able to go out and pull. Here's something simple, and Mark Hamill is kind of one of the kings of this. It will be able to pull and analyze, for example, code repositories and look at strengths or weaknesses on that. That stuff is more important than what anybody can write in a resume. Don't tell me, show me. Um, Open source sourcing. Build watch lists of projects and contributors aligned to your stack. Um, and what's interesting here is, and this is really more heavily from a technical standpoint, is I did something a couple of years back called followers and forkers, and it's looking at wherever company I go into, I ask for GitHub repos, and I look at all the followers, the forkers, the stars, and whatnot. And those people are more, them following somebody is more important than their resume telling me that they know something. So you can go out there and you'll look at projects, look at contributors, the usual stuff. Look at conferences. Look at and build. Open. Essentially, it's open source. Build pipelines from those people. Silent signal alerts. Trigger. Recruiter outreach when response latency drops below a threshold. When people aren't responding back after X number of days, you know, it's time to you can automate that. You can agentically automate things like this. Fix the problem. Multimodal context hiring. I'm going to go over this really quickly because I'm sure Dan is sweating right now. Assess voice, gesture, and digital behaviors. Look at fit from a team and person fit and as a continuous basis. As the process winds goes proceeds, each step might be different. Collect the data and don't let the final uh, good, bad, or ugly dictate thing. Look at all the data. Reveal the company's soul in hiring. Reveal the company's why through stories baked into every hiring touch point. Um, you know, a story is much better than the fluff that we tell. Let's be honest. Position vehicles as roles of purpose, not just pay. Um, have team signals. Look at, if you're looking at a particular tech team, look how they really work via collaboration tools, Slack, Teams, Jira. Look at those things. Use your AI to pull in the stuff and synthesize something out of it that you can use as the basis for a conversation. Culture scoring dashboard. Simply track evidence, not feelings. Show of hands, how many people here have ever been on a debrief and some clown says, you know what? I just don't think they're a culture fit. And most recruiters, well, okay, that's fine. How many of you have actually asked that person, okay, Steve, what questions did you ask and what were their responses that led you to this decision? Well, I didn't really ask a question. Just a nod. Don't do that anymore. Um, look for things like a brand story JD overhaul. Rewrite every job description with storytelling principles. Community impact story. Weave, your corporate social responsibility and your volunteering into pipelines and offers. Don't wait. Build it in at every blessed step. And finally, have purpose-driven sourcing campaigns. Target your outreach to causes, not just people, not just, code bangers, but puppies and cats and rhinos and turtles and environmental stuff. You're going to find people whom you covet, believing in those social issues. Go with those first. You're going to see a much, much more personal connection. And it's about, you got to show the love of the organization. Um, Strategic workforce architecture, just architecting TA platforms and data to connect hiring and performance, mobility and comp. Run multiple variable simulations, economic, regulatory, automation to plan talent moves. Position TA as market making function, not just as a service desk. This is all about journey mapping and real time analytics. I believe in don't hide your metrics from the C levels and the board. Quite simply, if you want them to believe in you, make them accessible to the leaders in a language they understand. Years ago I said, if you don't know what metrics are important to your C's, sit with your CFO. You ask them what metrics do they use to measure the health and wellness of the balance sheet, and then say, can you help me create TA metrics that do the same thing? Um, Board level TA dashboards regularly present talent data, as I talked about. Um, After action reviews, post event look backs to refine thresholds, analyze what worked and what didn't work after the fact. Don't just push the data in the past. If it doesn't change the CEO's decision, it isn't strategic, period. Workforce modulation, talent stacking. It's about creating the future workforce is going to be a agglomeration of gig workers, agents, and FTEs. Find ways to blend them together. Work on defining, what type of project mix or team mix works best. Start figuring it out, play the variations, collect the data, look at the outcomes. And finally, brand adaptation for synthetic interfaces. This is about context aware. You want to optimize your employer brand so candidate facing AI can read and present it accurately. It ensures that AI mediated candidate journeys faithfully reflect your brand. Don't let the AI, essentially, if you're gonna use it to write stuff, you damn well better read it and say, look, you are creeping away from the intentionality of our brand. We need to bring it back. Um, you know, write for humans first, but remove whatever jargon is in there so the bots don't hallucinate. And brand language testing, use different AI tools. AI brand influence tracking, monitor how the people interpret the brand. And that is something you can ask during interviews. Okay, what got you? Or, well, I saw this. What do you think it meant? What did it mean to you? Track that. Anyway, this is a bridge in China. These are really common in China. I think it's Hongjiang. I'm not really sure exactly. but this is somebody walking over a glass bridge and they're a little bit on the scary side and they got somebody helping you. That's what this community is about. We're going to get you across the bridge. We're going to get you there. Don't be afraid. Steve out.